What happens when thousands of ordinary people begin reporting the same impossible things? Lights that move beyond the physics, encounters that change lives forever, and experiences so profound they blur the lines between science, consciousness, and the paranormal. Today on Starseed Essence, our guest is researcher, author, and former MUFON State Director John Ventre. We'll explore eyewitness encounters, government secrecy, paranormal overlap, consciousness, and what disclosure could mean for humanity itself. John, welcome to Starseed Essence Media.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thank you.
I'm so glad that you came on. I'm very, very excited for this one. I really am thankful for you being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Before the conferences and investigations, before all of your television and disclosure discussions, what first pulled you to the UFO phenomenon?
Yeah, well, I think my start is very different than anyone else. I knew nothing about UFOs. I had no interest in UFOs. But I was working at UPS on a special assignment. I had a lot of free time, and I always wanted to write a book. So I remember I was in Boynton Beach, Florida, went down to the front desk, got some paper, and I started writing all my ideas. And I published an end-time prophecy book on the Mayan calendar. But in the research of that, and I was like 41 years old at that point, in the research of that, I kept coming across them talking about star people on flying shields. Kind of sounded like they got knowledge from extraterrestrials. So from that, in 1998, I joined MUFON. And it didn't take too long. I became the state director. But that's how I got involved. I knew nothing about UFOs. I was 41. And from that point, I said, well, I'm going to write another book on UFOs. But I've stayed in it now for, 28 years?
Wow. How many books have you written?
14.
14. Wow.
And the most recent one is so cool. It's called Templars versus Indians, like cowboys and Indians.
Uh-huh.
And I was knighted in Europe 3 years ago as a Knights Templar. So I know all about their history. And I was thinking about that movie Prey with Predator and the Native Americans. And I said, boy, how cool would it be to have, make more of those where they come back and they fight the Romans, they fight. And then all of a sudden I said, well, wait a second. I'll write a book where, something similar to that. It's the Knights Templars come to the New World and they battle the Native Americans, but it's the Native Americans that call upon their gods. And, their gods, Wendigo, Bigfoot, giants, little people, shapeshifters. I said, what a cool book, because I used to give, and I still do give a presentation on Native American folklore. Took my knowledge of the Templars and of the Native American legends, and I put it into this book. It is a cryptid book, first cryptid book that I wrote. But then, I had written a story on Lilith. So the first half of the book is that. Then I get into the Hollow Earth. So I talk about Lilith, and then my research into Hollow Earth theory, and I filmed the pilot for a new TV series based on the Hollow Earth, and I think we're going to actually get started now shortly on that. But that's a whole nother cool genre that nobody talks about, that this stuff is from Earth, and not necessarily that the Earth's hollow, but down below. My view is it's interdimensional. I don't think there's a kingdom under the ground like old Hollow Earth theory.
It's the inner Earth.
But all the it's interdimensional. And, angels, demons, Bigfoot, UFOs, they come out of mountains, caves, fairies, elves. It's all the same thing as John Keel used to say. We're dealing with the same thing. They just put different clothes on,
That's true.
So this is a cool book that I really wrote. But, I've written 14. I think I would say there was 3 on end time prophecy, maybe 6 on UFOs. You got this one now on cryptids. I wrote one actually about Wuhan. It was the first book out on the Wuhan, on the COVID virus.
Wow.
I wrote one on the history of slavery because I wanted to talk about Irish slavery, what nobody talks about. But we had more Irish here, indentured, or as A lot of people say they were slaves more than Africans by 1850. But, it's basically, it's a whole bunch of different topics. It's not all UFOs, but almost half the books. I would say two of my books is on demonology and my
Wow.
story and why I think the UFO may be very demonic in its, at least the alien side of it is a demonic contact, so we could talk about that. But I do want to mention one other thing.
Mhm.
I'm on the ballot right now for lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania, and you do not get ufologists going into politics for a lot of reasons because they make fun of you. So, but that all changed, when the government came out in 2017, basically saying, UFOs are real,
Mhm.
and you got these congressional hearings. But the last person that ran for a high office was Stephen Bassett in 2002. He ran for Congress. So I'm running for lieutenant governor. And there was a guy back in the 60s. He ran for president. He ran for Senate. I think Green was his last name. But, it's an area that you don't have ufologists involved in. But I did say that when I win and I go to Harrisburg,
Yeah.
I'm going to create back in 1942, General Marshall asked for the IPU, the Interplanetary Phenomena Unit, and they actually created that because a lot of cases they um, refer the UFO case to the officer of the IPU. So they did that. So when I get to Harrisburg, we're going to create the IPU, but I think it's going to be the PIPU, Pennsylvania Interdimensional Phenomena Unit, because I think this
Wow.
is more interdimensional than it is
It
physical.
is. It really is. I was just talking with somebody from Pennsylvania yesterday, and she was talking about her connection with Bigfoot.
Yeah,
And I have several friends that have seen Bigfoot in North Carolina on their property where they have ley lines that cross north, south, east, and west, all directions. And they have like a stone circle. They see fairies,
yeah.
the interdimensional gnomes. I mean, you can believe it or not, but we do have this hollow earth. I actually had, we didn't plan talking about the hollow earth. And look what I
Yeah.
have, the hollow earth book behind me about the
Oh,
earth
yeah,
because it's
I think
something
I've
I've
read.
been into for a very long time. It's the,
Oh, there it
it's
is.
the
Yeah,
hol-
yeah,
I know it looks
yeah,
backwards on the screen, but it's talking about the hollow earth and the inner earth beings. I've always been connected to that because
absolutely.
what we do here on this in this realm affects all the different interdimensional realms on
Yeah.
you could say quantum, interdimensional, whatever definition you want to give it. It
Hmm.
it is all overlapping here.
Yeah.
And I know like it's not all love and light. It is not. There are people that have had horrible experiences, including me. I have, especially as a child.
Yeah.
It took me until my 80s to know how to kind of control some of the things that were going on. And that's what brought me to this subject.
Hmm.
I want to ask you, was there a moment where you realized this is not just folklore or science fiction anymore?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I did a lot of investigations, and if you saw me on TV, on the Discovery Channel, UFOs Over Earth, or Hangar One on History Channel, I mean, we did all these investigations. We had trace evidence, witnesses, all of that. But still, I'm a security director, a state level security director from UPS, so I'm doing the investigations. And I believed UFOs are real based on everything else. I had never seen one. But my moment, my epiphany came June of 2014. Season 1 of Hangar on History just concluded. So it's in between season 1 and 2. I'm watching TV, baseball game. My 112-pound Doberman comes over and lays across my legs. I was in a lounge chair. He's never done that. He wasn't affectionate. He was a guard dog, attack dog. And I said, wow, that's unusual. He was protecting me. It was no sooner he laid across my legs and it was protection that on the wall, there was a bang. Boom! I have a picture there. It actually flipped up and there's two Native American like headdresses and the, feathers things blew to the side. I said, well, and both him and me and the dog, we both turned simultaneously with the bang. He knew something was in the house. So I went upstairs and right in the hallway, there was this column of smell. And like I smelled it. I thought the dog did his business upstairs. And then I I back up a foot, and I don't smell it. I move forward, I smell it. It was just this column of smell. And as I put like the fan on in the bathroom, and when the game was over, I went upstairs, it still smelled. So I turned the fan off. I went to bed. The dog sleeps on a chair in front of the footboard. I put the Weather Channel on. I'm watching it, and in my bathroom, boom! And both me and the dog turned simultaneously. I said, "What the heck is that?" So I contacted my investigators in Pennsylvania, MUFON. And one of the things I had done was years ago, I recruited a lot of Bigfoot and ghost investigators because they know how to investigate. And it's the same thing. Well, you're investigating ghosts or you can investigate UFOs. You're investigating Bigfoot. You can come investigate. I recruited a whole bunch of them. We had the most successful state MUFON group in the organization. I believe we were the best for a number of years. We grow in it and all of that stuff, you know. But I contacted them, and a couple of them, the ghost hunters, said if it smells, you don't have a ghost, you got a demon.
Hmm.
So I said, "Oh my God, it's not," you know, that started me down this process knowing that something here is real. And,
Yeah.
you know, I actually became a reborn Christian because of this. I hadn't been to church it was almost exactly 20 years. I got divorced June 6th of 94. This thing showed up June 7th of, what was it, 24? It was
Wow.
almost 20 years to the date. But,
Mhm.
you know, and it's interesting, the whole research then of looking into, you know, the Bible and UFOs, and I became an expert in demonology. I believe I could probably perform an exorcism. Not that
Mhm.
I'd want to. I don't want to be around these things. I don't want to invite them in because if you fail at an exorcism, it now has the right to attack you. You know,
Mhm.
so I'm not looking to bring that back into my house. But it was very strange, and then other things happen. You know, I woke up. Well, I'll go back a little bit. This is all during my time, you know, as a MUFON state director and investigator. You know, my kids lived in New Jersey because I got divorced, and I live in PA. But I saw them every other weekend for 8 years. I would drive out to see them. It was a long ride, 610 miles round trip. But so they're at my house in 2004. My girlfriend had just moved in. So we all go to bed. I remember it was around midnight, 12:30, and I hear some walking up and down the hallway. We had closed our bedroom door, and I said, "Oh, the kids are up," you know? So in the morning, my girlfriend uses the other bathroom because she had so much stuff. But she went to work on that Friday after Thanksgiving. So I get up to brush my teeth. There's two arm prints on the mirror like this.
Wow.
I got a picture and I got a video of it, right?
Huh.
Except it's two bones. There's no meat. It's
Huh.
two bones, 6 fingers. I measure it
Wow.
from elbow to fingertip. It's 3 inches longer than mine. I'm
Huh.
6 foot. I'm actually 74-inch wingspan. This thing would have been over 7 feet tall. So
Wow.
I get up and my son says, I said to my son and my daughter, I said, "Were you guys up last night walking up and down the hallway?" And you see, you know when the kid's telling the truth. My son's like jaw dropped. He turned like white. He goes, "Dad, we thought that was you walking up and down the hallway." And my daughter said, she goes, "There was something very malevolent because women, I think, sense it even more." And she goes,
Mhm.
"I went and slept with Nolan, you know, with her brother that night." She goes, "I did not feel comfortable in the house." So they knew. And there were so many times that the dog would just go crazy. I mean, and then all the signs started happening, you know, walking across, there's nothing there, and you hear nails walking across the tile
Mhm.
floor, you
Yep.
know, all kinds of things. But what happened then 5 years later, that was '04, in '09, I wake up suddenly and my bed looks right down the hallway. So I wake up and I look, there's somebody standing down the hallway and he's backlit. You know, that's a demonic sign when it's backlit, you know?
Mhm.
So it's silhouetted. I can't see it, but its head is higher than the door frame, you know? So I'm rubbing my eyes. I crawl to the footboard. I'm looking. I said, well, there's somebody standing there. I was taking kickboxing. So in my head, I said, step over the footboard, charge it, and hit it as hard as you can. As soon as I said that, this is the only time I ever heard a voice in my head. It said, you don't want to do that. It may be unsafe. you want to step off the side of the bed and put the light on. And I thought, well, UPS, safety first. That's what I did. I put the light on and it was gone. But here's the thing, though. I went and walked down the hallway because I thought, maybe there'd be footsteps. So I went down the hallway. I came back. My Doberman is sleeping right there at the top of the stairs. I walked past him twice. He doesn't wake up. He's still, you can't walk past the dog and he don't wake up. So right away I said to myself, this is like the alien abduction where the woman's being taken, the husband's asleep, and she can't wake him up.
Yeah.
Bob, wake up, wake up.
Mhm.
My dog
Yeah.
was sound asleep. But here's the thing in the description of this thing. So its head is above the door frame. Oh, it's door frame 6'8". So it puts it at about 7 feet or so. Had very long arms and legs. The waist was maybe 12 inches. So apparently they don't eat food. So you got this long thing standing there with a little waist, but it seemed to have a square head. It reminded me of Gumby, if you remember the Gumby doll
Mhm.
toy thing.
Yeah.
This squarish head, but is he wearing a helmet? Is this an alien abduction? So I go back, lay down, and you can't sleep. So I open my eyes, and I saw a light outside, and the light got dimmer, like it was backing away. So my UFO friends say they just dropped you off after an alien abduction. So I don't know. I don't know if that was alien or that was demon, but there was just
I
so many things.
I feel like that was a ET of some sort. I feel like.
Yeah, it could have been because of the light. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been abducted? Do you feel like you've been abducted?
I've had 2 out-of-body experiences in my life. One was at 12 years old. I was living in Queens, and I just remember 3, 4 nights in a row. I couldn't wait to go to bed. Like, as soon as it got dark at 8:30, 9 o'clock, I wanted to go to bed because I was able to then, like in my lucid dream, I was able to pull my arms back and fly like Superman. But I was flying. I had this out of body experience. I was
Mhm.
over the trees and the houses. I was looking down on my friends'
Mhm.
houses. This went on for 3 or 4 nights. But then again, that was the summer of '69. In the summer of '99, exactly 40 years, 30 years later, I had my second out of body experience. And strangely, I joined MUFON in '98. So in '99, I went to their symposium in Washington, D.C. I said, I might as well go. I just joined. I get home and I now have 4 nights of out of body experiences. Something is in the house. I remember I floating above my house. The peak of the house was right there. And I said to myself, move your hand, touch the peak. Then in my head, I said, no, don't do that. If you wake up, you're going to fall 30 feet. But I could see my car in the driveway. I had these dream. It's a lucid dream of this kid standing there, and my Doberman's floating in the air horizontally. And there's a kid there with no shirt on, about 12 years old, about the same age as my son at that point, let's say. And he's poking the dog really hard. And I'm yelling at the kid, stop poking the dog, because he's poking him real hard in the ribs like he'd never seen a dog
Oh.
before. So this kid turns around and it's like, holy cow, he's got big eyes.
Mm.
He's got like these hair plugs. Arms are very muscular, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or a bodybuilder like Popeye, but the bone is sticking out on the end,
Huh.
The bone's sticking out, very muscular. But then there's another kid standing there. He's all dressed in black. His hair is slicked back. And he's got this rat boy face, with the teeth
Mhm.
like a rat boy. And he's standing there. I mean, it's the weirdest dreams. And I keep waking up like every hour and a half. Something is in the room. I can sense it. And in my dream, again, I'm seeing this hairy, like it from the Addams family, but tall, standing next to the bed. So I'm waking up swinging my fist because I know something's there. And I
Mhm.
actually hit the headboard, almost broke my wrist. But then, my son, we're divorced. He's in the house in New Jersey. He's brushing his teeth. The cat's on the counter. And what happens? A creature walks down the hallway past the door. He sees it in the mirror, this hairy creature, the same one I saw. The cat turns and looks. And he said he jumped over the railing and ran right out of the house because there was a creature in the house. So So I mean, I
Did it?
got so many things. I could talk 4 hours on just the
I
demonic
bet.
side. But that's the thing that I knew something was going on here. I believe it's related to the UFO field because I got involved in it.
Hmm.
But I don't know if it's alien
Well,
or malevolent interdimensional entity is what I called it, you know?
what about, okay, you know the book, The Wild Things, where the
Oh,
wild
yeah,
things
yeah,
are?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah.
how those beings, did it look something like that to you? Like,
No,
because I feel like that's based off some kind of truth in an interdimensional way.
yeah, I remember reading that book in second or third grade, and I couldn't remember the title of it until they came out with the movie. I said, that's that book I loved,
This,
you know? But no, this thing that I saw down the hallway was more like Slender Man or It Follows, that type of thing. But,
hmm,
it had the body of Slender Man, except
yeah,
it wasn't in a suit. It was either had no clothes or some
it's gray.
tightly fitting thing. There was you couldn't see anything, but it reminded me of Slender Man. And it's funny, I bought a book on Slender Man written by a paranormal pastor who I knew up in Erie. He said he wrote a book, so I got the book from him, and there it is, backlit. He's wearing a suit, but he's backlit, but he's got these black tendrils, behind him. But that backlit thing is something to do with the demonic or something very malevolent. But yeah, I mean, I have seen shadow people, and 3 or 4
Hmm.
times this rolling cloud across the ceiling. It's maybe 6 feet by 4 feet, and it's rolling across the ceiling, and it seems to be alive like a
I've
fluid
seen
type
that.
thing. Yeah, and it's
Like a
rolling.
ball, like black.
Yeah, like a big black cloud
I've
ball
seen that.
thing, and it's moving, and I saw it. My sister, I think, was the first one who saw it in my house in New Jersey after we got divorced. And then my girlfriend and I saw it. We're in the bedroom talking, and this thing rolls across the ceiling. We're looking at each other. There's a nightlight on. What's making a shadow? And it just like hits itself above me. We look at each other, then it was gone. And the
Wow,
same thing here in this house that it
creepy.
happened. Other witnesses. I mean, very, very strange activity. So anybody who doesn't think that there's paranormal, another realm, dimensions, I don't. I've talked to people, and some people have never had a single thing happen. Like they have the dullest brain. They're unable to, sense anything. But other people just come walking up to me and tell me their stories, whether it's
Hmm.
ghostly or demonic or UFOs.
Yeah, I know this interdimensional realm, there's many aspects to it. And is not all love and light, but there is some love and light to it
Yeah.
as far as like with the fairies or the Fey realm
Yeah.
and then Bigfoot. Well, some people don't, they can say good or bad with even Bigfoot. And I have been told there are good and bad Bigfoot, but more so that they are guardians of portals,
Yep.
things like that.
Well,
One thing.
Mount Shasta, that's part of the Hollow Earth theory. There's been 11 people disappeared at Mount Shasta, and the Native Americans say that Bigfoot guards the opening to the portal or the entrance.
Interesting.
And Mount Shasta in legend is where the Lemurians went, and they went to Mount Shasta up there in
Wow.
Oregon, Washington. Yeah.
That's
So, yeah,
interesting.
you were going to ask me something.
No, that's interesting. You bring up Mount Shasta. I can't even say it.
Shasta. Yeah.
Anyway, Shasta. It's
Like the
been
soda.
I've been here like I've been called to that area for some reason. Is all
Yeah.
I can say. I don't
Yeah.
know. I
Well,
don't
let
know
me let me
why.
tell you one other thing that happened that was the epitome of this. Well, a couple other things I'll tell you, and we could then talk a little more about UFOs. But I bring a priest in. He blesses the house, and I ask him, about sins of the father, because can this be an interdimensional thing that somebody's got to pay a price for what your father, grandfather may have done? The priest turns and looks at me and said, "The devil's not real. It's just written to scare you straight." And I said to myself, "Well, this isn't going to work. This blessing ain't going to work if you don't believe he's real." It lasted 6 months, and it came back in fury. They say it comes back
Wow.
7 times stronger. Well, it came
Uh-huh.
back 7 times stronger. So I'm actually for a couple of years, I'm talking years. If you saw the Exorcism movie with the banging sounds, the movement in the ceiling, the dog going insane, barking at something on the seal, just seeing different things.
Hmm.
My kids seeing things. I got a projector on the ceiling. I have a theater room. So it was again Thanksgiving with my kids. We just watched a Lion game. I went to switch it to the Cowboy game. And I'm talking to my son and his girlfriend, and right across the projector, you see this thing snake across. It was some sort of invisible minion that had enough, it was solid enough that the light hit it and you saw it go right across. You saw it go right across the screen.
Wow.
So it gets to, so June of 14, it's now January of 16. So figure it's a good hour, I mean, a year and a half that I'm battling this every night. At least a year solid of every night calling upon Jesus. I actually met this woman on a dating site, and she had similar stuff happen. So she was the one that pointed me in the right direction, what to say, go get holy oil and holy water,
Hmm.
all of that. I've been battling this thing. So it gets to one night. I'll tell you something else. I'm laying in bed watching the movie Damien, from the movie, they had a series. So when he's like being demonic on the walls, both walls, boom, 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 boom. I
Hmm.
turned it off and it stopped. So
Wow.
it gets to one night where this was the worst. The banging, the sliding sounds, the creaking sounds like they're crushing cans right in the corner of the room. And, I'm commanding it in the name of Jesus to leave, and it stops.
Hmm.
So I lay down, then I open my eyes because you can never sleep when this stuff's going on, right? I open my eyes. It's pitch black in the room now. I sit up and I said, well, wait a second. There was moonlight coming in. I've never seen it so black. It all started up again, right? And
Wow.
in my soul, I got a chill down my
Mm.
spine. In my soul, I sensed I was in trouble. They was going to launch an attack on me or take my soul. Something was about
Mm.
to happen because I was in pitch blackness, and that's impossible, right? So I went through my ritual again, commanding it out in the name of Jesus. But then I said something. I said to it, you stood in the presence of God and you rejected him. You cannot defy the name of Jesus Christ. You must obey and you must leave.
Hmm.
All the noises stopped. And it was like maybe 3 or 4 seconds. This veil of darkness lifted about that quickly. It lifted from all around me and the light
Wow.
came in, the moonlight came in. And that was like the main combat, but the demon didn't come back, but the minions, other entities were there.
Hmm.
And I still was going through it. So now it's January of 2019, right? So it's another 2 years later. I'm still battling this thing, and so many other things happen. And my friend makes some movies, and he says he's making a movie called The Exorcism Prayer. 5 cases. He's got 5 ministers or pastors. And he says, I know about you. He goes, let's do this. And he said, what we'll do is we'll come to your house. I'll bring an exorcist, the minister who's an exorcist, will film you guys talking. Then he will bless you and he will exorcise the house. Well, we did that, and it's actually on film. It's a movie called The Exorcism Prayer. We do that, and boom, it's gone. And
Wow.
the main part of it, he exorcised it out of my house. And, but I still have things that happen, most recent probably, and they're off and on. Something don't happen for months. I can sense when it's in the house, so can the dog. He'll be looking up and I just sense a presence. Sometimes I hear scratching sounds, you
Hmm.
know, but I'm doing research on this hollow earth for my book, the second half of my book. And I'm like watching a baseball game while I'm reading and doing research and all of that. And all of a sudden, there's 2 different light switches. It's a pool table like rec room. Both switches turn off. Not one, both switches turned off. So right away, your brain says, I blew a fuse, right? But then I looked, I said, wait a minute, the TV's still on. I didn't blow a fuse if the TV's on. And so I go down, check the fuses. They're all fine. I come back up. I put the lights on. They're working. I said, well, that's odd. So it's like 10 o'clock, whatever. I go up to go to bed. As soon as I put the light on, almost like the Amityville Horror, I put the light on. There had to be 100 flies started coming out from behind my mirror.
Oh.
the big mirror, they're coming
Mm,
out the top, they're coming out the bottom. I said, "Oh my
that's
God."
terrifying. Yeah.
I ran downstairs, grabbed Raid, I put it along the top of the mirror and up the bottom of the mirror,
Yeah.
and boom, and I got pictures of it. I got
Yeah.
100 dead flies there on the counter. So, I mean, what's the odds? You're researching how I wrote
Well,
a
you
book
do.
on I called The Ufologist, a ufologist, The Haunting of John Ventre. And then I wrote a second book that's almost 3 times as long that goes into the UFO field, why certain cases are not UFO abductions, alien abductions. These are demonic. And
Mhm.
I might be the only person in the world that identified the markers. I compared alien abduction to demonic infestation, and there's about a 65% overlap between the two. And matter of fact, I gave my research to the MUFON abduction team. They, in their teaching of their course, they refer to this chart of alien abduction and demonic infestation and all the similar things
Yeah.
that happen. And then, then I just gave a presentation at the UFO conference here in Pittsburgh. I come across the 1992 symposium on abductions. So I get a book and I'm reading that, and right there in it, they spent a whole day talking about the demonic connection to alien abduction. And a lot of the things I discovered in my own research was right there. It's been there since 1992, but I
Wow.
didn't discover it until whatever it was 2020 or whatever when I'm writing this book. But that's something else that, it's like I was with MUFON for a solid 20 years. I retired in 2018, even though I still ran the conferences for them here in Pennsylvania. And I was on their board for 3 years. I was a multi-state director. I had 7 states, Pennsylvania, and 6 others. We were the most successful chapter because I was able to manage it like I did at work. I had 3 states, so I knew how to manage that type of thing. But when I was on their board in 2012 or 2013, we're in Vegas, and I bring all of this stuff with me to the meeting because I've never heard MUFON talk about it. The Fire Officer's Guide to Disaster Control, the Cometa Report, the Air Force Manual Physics 370. I brought all these different things with me. So it was right before break, and I said, I need 10 minutes. So I get up and I say, look, we got all of this evidence here, all these different things. And they're just like looking at me. Not one board member said a word. I said, okay, let's break for lunch. So we have lunch, and I'm standing in the hallway, and the international director and the guy that would be his second in charge board member came up to me, and I said, the reason I'm so interested in this and stay involved in this, because I really wasn't going to be involved for more than a couple of years, write a book, move on to ghost hunting. I said, it's all these documents and this stuff that's written. They both broke out laughing. And then they caught themselves. One was an NSA guy. The other guy was Army intelligence. Then they caught them. They will laugh. They looked at each other and laughed. Then they caught themselves and were serious and said, yeah, you're right. And that
Yeah.
always stuck with me. What was behind that? Why would they laugh when I'm showing this type of documentation? But they never taught any of this stuff, this MIT research that talked about a malevolent side to the abduction. There's just so much of this stuff, and it always struck me and I like MUFON, but there was always something there. There really was. There was something missing, something not right. And
Yeah.
and now you got the government involved, and I even said to them in one of their board meetings is, people criticize us, and I'm one of the few people with no government connections. Look at you guys. You got 9 guys on the board, and 7 of you guys have worked for the government in one way or another. Keep putting government people here on the inside. People are not going to believe you. I mean, I was a state security director for UPS. That's not government. It's not the post office. But,
Yeah.
that was one of the things. But there's something here very much being hidden from us.
Mhm.
And it's not coming from Congress and Trump. I said months last year, in presentations, Trump will be the disclosure president. And I teach a class at the college here on UFOs in December and November. And I said it, you may not like it, but Trump's going to be the disclosure president. So here he is, over the weekend, whatever releases the UFO files, but there's nothing conclusive in it. It's just more videos of what I believe is our technology. I don't really think that they're showing me stuff from space, that if you got it, show it to us, and I said this during COVID, in 2020. Everybody's talking about it. And I said, well, in my UFO, website side of it, Facebook, I said, well, here's how the aliens can win us over. So we're in the middle of COVID here. Everything is shut down. Just fly in, show yourself like Independence Day, take over the broadcasting and say, we will clean this up. We will cure the virus. And then, let's say the new age side of UFOs always say, well, they're here to clean up the environment and clear and all of that stuff. Well, do it. You
Yeah.
had the perfect opportunity during COVID to swoop in, show yourself, cure the virus, and you would have won over 90% of the people at COVID. They didn't do it. So it's there is something here that's it's physical, but it's not physical. Something interdimensional is my
Mm-hmm.
belief. And
Do.
whatever the truth is, they are not telling us. And anybody who thinks the government's going to tell us the truth, I got news for you. They are not going to tell us the
No.
truth.
It'll come from we the people. That's what I
Yeah,
always
well,
tell everybody. We the people.
and it's come from people. I don't know what your experience, my experience. I mean, we already know the truth that there's something going on,
Mm-hmm.
even though we can't fully explain it. But there's millions of people that have had some sort of encounter that's paranormal.
Yeah. I know there's a MK Ultra
Yeah.
hearing coming up. Do you think some of this could be related to that?
Well, there is part of that, but here's the thing. As soon as I heard that she was doing a hearing on MK Ultra, I said to myself, they are talking about things that I learned 30 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like they're novices. They're discovering these things and they're saying, oh, there was an MK Ultra. Let's have a hearing.
Yeah.
This took
That's
place,
in the
I knew
60s.
about it 30 years ago, but it took
Yeah.
place 6 years
In the
ago.
60s. Yeah.
Alan Dulles, when he got caught, he destroyed all the MK Ultra files and all of that. But there's part of the MK Ultra that's very interesting. It's not just using LSD to create assassins like Lee Harvey Oswald and those type of people where you mess with their head and try to control them. But part of the MK Ultra, and I wonder if she's going to talk about this. I'd love to. I told my congressman who's all into UF, the next hearing, you need to get me a pass. I need to be there because I'm as well known as the people that are there. I want to
Yeah.
be there, and I want to see if I can't ask some questions. But part of the MK Ultra, there's a whole nother section called the Jason Society and the Collins Elite. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but have you ever heard of the Collins Elite?
I've been doing research on it, like deep research on it, and that does ring a bell. I've written down so much.
Yeah,
I found out so much.
look up the Collins Elite. Very interesting. You got Ray Boucher is the Nebraska MUFON state director, and he's a pastor. So he's approached by some guys to give him this information, and it's not really, it's kind of part of MK Ultra, but it's a branch out of that. But so they tell him, we know you will do what needs to get done on this. Hold on a second. My political thing there, trying to put an ad on Fox News. They just called me.
Oh.
So they give him this information and they said, we know you'll know what to do with it. So basically what it is that there was this group formed early on. It started out with the FBI investigating Aleister Crowley because of his satanic stuff. And then when the CIA came into being, I think maybe that was 1952, it was turned over to the CIA. So the CIA took over looking at the paranormal and UFO sightings because it was, they had the UFOs over DC. That's right after that, they formed 4 branches of the government. CIA was one of them. And so now they're looking at this whole demonic side, but they're also looking at all these UFO cases and sightings and stuff. So basically their conclusion was that UFOs were not from space. They were paranormal, right? And you would have to think maybe demonic, like the MIT thing. See, nobody's talking about this demonic side to the aliens and that
Mm-hmm.
they're able to manifest energy and show you a UFO. And this is interesting. I kind of wrote a letter to the editor of the MUFON Journal a year ago, being kind of facetious because this one guy wrote a book, The Bible and UFOs, and he wrote they covered it, and it was going a little bit too far. Didn't believe in God, aliens created us, upgraded us. He didn't believe in the flood. He didn't believe in any of the biblical, but he's a pastor, you know. So I wrote my rebuttal, but the end of my rebuttal to what he was saying, I had just read a book by a priest, and he talked about UFOs. And so my ending was, wouldn't it be funny? I said, I just read this and I read it twice now. I'd never come across it before. But the theory is from the religious community that when they leave the interdimensional and come into our 3 dimensions, they're now solid. They can't fly around like Superman. I mean, God can do whatever he wants, but angels and demons, when they materialize, they're here. They materialize, until they kind of go back into the spirit world, then they can move around, right? But when they're here in the physical, they got to get around too. They need a craft. So
Yeah.
what you see with these crafts, when you see them, and people do see them,
Hmm.
all piloted by angels and demons. They have their own space force. And I kind of said it laughingly. Wouldn't it be funny? We've done all this research, and it turns out that the pilots of the UFOs are angels and fallen angels. And I
Yeah.
left it at that. So what do you have? You come out a month ago, and the vice president, J.D. Vance, comes out, and he says, this whole thing is demonic. This is interdimensional and demonic. And I'm laughing again because I've always been so far ahead of the curve because I can see things, I reason through things. Once I start putting things together, I get an idea of what things really are. But
Yeah.
again, I say to myself, I nailed it again,
Yeah. 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 I think there is a duality to it for sure. The angels and demons aspect to it all.
Yeah.
So I've been tapped into the hollow earth or the inner earth topic for some reason, and it has to do with understanding the interdimensional and experiencing demonic and angel and
Yeah.
ET beings, orbs, all kind of stuff myself. So that's why I have been in, like, anybody that knows me knows I've talked about it all the time.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like we're on some sort of brink of not just disclosure, but, or you would call it an ascension, just consciousness expansion, basically. And I wonder how our consciousness as human beings, as we expand and understand these things, how it affects the other realms, just like anything that we do here in this 3D realm, how it can affect the realms above and below us, the heavens and the inner earth beings, and how everything is flipped here. Everything's distorted. So just trying to understand or grasp that. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of like the movie The Butterfly Effect. When you do one thing, then it creates this whole domino effect. If you remember in the movie Gladiator, when Russell Crowe's addressing his troops, and he makes, I think in the beginning of the movie, they're going into battle, and he says, "What you do here will be, reflects for eternity." The things you do and stuff.
It's true.
There's a lot of truth to that, And I've also come to wonder. But it's, I always, because of tulpas, Tulpas, tulpa, they say that certain people can create this kinetic energy. You're making the noises. You're doing all of this. The dog's reacting, and it's you. And I said, well, is it me doing it? So if I try not to, it was hard for a long time to go to bed and not think about this. And then I would hear sounds,
Yeah.
There was so many times that it's like I'm watching a baseball game. Boom. I said, I ain't thinking about anything. I'm reading a book and and the lights turn off. I mean, I didn't do that. It's not my brain, but maybe it is. Maybe
Well,
we have an angel on one shoulder and a demon on the other, and there's an attachment. There are soul
could be.
attachments too. Who
Yeah.
knows?
I know. You don't know this about me, but my dad is a preacher. My grandfather's a preacher. I have had a healing art studio where, people have come to me and asked me to do exorcisms on them, which I don't say it's exorcism. I say just energy clearing. But I've experienced that too, where I've thought, is this coming from me? Where I've been in a room in a house where all of a sudden there's just clicks and dings
Yep.
everywhere throughout the house all at once.
Yep.
It's just so creepy. And I grounded down through my heart space, inner knowing this is what I do. And just you command the space and put your energy into the space and it can leave just
Yeah.
by, well, I don't know if you just heard that click.
I did
I
hear
have
that.
energy around me, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I get that all the time. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. When I do podcasts at night and I put this light on right here, every single time we're doing a podcast like this, the light will glow. It goes from 60 watts to 150, and then it
Wow.
would start flickering all over. There's an energy thing, and I don't know if it comes from me. There's an attachment. It's in the house. I don't know, but I get those sounds all the time. I'll lay down in bed, boom, boom, on opposite walls. All the time I get this stuff.
That's interesting. I wonder if it has something to do with like ley lines or the earth, the land that you're on too, because
Well,
this,
I'll tell you, one thing that happened here though is the day I moved into my house in New Jersey, all the moving boxes in the garage, you could hear them sliding around. My father came over and I was showing him the house and he says, "What is that, John?" I said, "I don't know, Dad, but all the boxes in the garage, they slide around on their own, right?" But the day I moved into this one, there was every time I went to bed, a slow, steady knocking in the hallway. And it would be all night. And I would, like an idiot, get up. I'm looking, I'm going in the attic looking for mice. But, I'd hit the wall, it would stop. And I'd go, as soon as I lay down, it would start up again. So it's not like, it's, you vibrated something. So, I
that
don't
is
know. The
interesting.
whole
I've
thing.
I've experienced it, so I know what you're talking about.
But I live next to a cemetery. I got a stockade fence. And, there was a lot of Native American activity here, French and Indian wars. A lot of that took place in this area. And so I'm reading a couple of books, and one was a psychiatrist and his wife was a medium. And in certain cases, he'd bring his wife in because he knew there was a soul attachment. So he would then get her involved with the person and get the soul attachment off of the person, that type of thing. But one of the things he had said was you don't want to scream like a priest at these things because some of them are not demonic. They're human spirits. They don't really know they're dead. They're trying to get your attention, kind of like that movie Ghost with Demi Moore, right? They seeing things. So he goes, you got to reason with them, lower your tone and reason with them. So, after living in this house for, let's say, 25 years or more, I finally, one night when they started there knocking down the hallway, I get up out of bed, I'm totally naked. I walk down the hallway and I said to him, "Hey, dummy, I've heard you from the day you moved in. All right. I ignore you. I don't say anything. I've heard you from day one since you knocked on the wall right here. And as soon as I pointed to the spot, bang, right at that spot. And I looked as I turned and I said, that's good. That's a good trick. You banged the second I pointed there. I said, now that's impressive. And then I said to him, hey, look, the year is, let's say it was 2024. The year is 2024. I don't know when you passed away. I walked through the cemetery. There's a whole bunch of headstones from 1918, 19, between the Spanish flu and World War I. I said, I don't know, but you're dead. I'm alive. You're dead. So I said, you've got to go to the light. If you see it, you've got to go to the light. Stop coming here. I said, I hear you. I know you're here. I'm going to bed, and I told it. And so as I'm talking and stuff, you then hear on the hallway wall, the bang, lighter, 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 gone.
Yeah.
And it was actually gone for about a year. And this stuff started acting up again last like August as I was doing the Hollow Earth research. So I think when I'm getting closer to the truth, like Hollow Earth, that's the connection to a lot of this is interdimensional. From underground caves, mountains, that type of stuff. They know when I'm getting close, and I think they try to stop me too.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I know we're creeping up on our hour time.
Yeah.
And I just think there's so many.
Yeah, we'll do this again and talk about UFOs because I've had some interesting cases.
Yes,
but my website's just my name, johnventre.com. johnventre.com.
John Ventre. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I do want to have you back on at some point whenever you get the Hollow Earth. I would love to be a part of it in any way. I am trying to create a documentary myself about like
Okay. All right.
Sasquatch and fairies and the
Do you
interdimensional.
speak at conferences? Do you speak at conferences?
I am completely new to all of this. Well, new
Okay.
speaking wise, like podcast
Yeah.
speaking. I would love to. I mean, I feel like a calling for this, and I feel like there's definitely my spirit guides were telling me to reach out to you, and I knew nothing
Yes.
about the hollow. Like, I'm a big Hollow Earth person, so you see the
Well,
book behind me.
we're going to talk about that at my conferences. I run the Pittsburgh one, and I took it over from MUFON. They didn't want to run them anymore. So I run one in Bucks County and this one here in Westmoreland. But Bucks County is a 500-mile round trip for me. And the attendance there has always been, but we get good attendance here in the Southwest PA side. So, I'll keep you in mind, for a speaker on the Hollow Earth. I got to see, some of your research and stuff.
I would love that. Yeah. We'll touch base again, and I really do appreciate you coming on. And I just want to tell everybody, if this information resonates with you, please subscribe, comment. I love engagement. I will respond to every single comment on here. Please comment. It's very important. We're trying to do this together as a community. And welcome to Starseed Essence. Thank you so much, John.
Very good.
And I'm going to hit
Thank
the
you.
stop button.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.